And that was Kids with Guns from Gorillaz, a song that is often associated with guerrilla warfare in Africa. Next up on our agenda is something very special. We recently have had back and forth communications with Mr. Martin Bull, and he's a publisher for the mysterious Mr. Banksy, an English graffiti artist, and has given us the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to speak to a legendary man himself.
Hello?
Hi, this is Roger Wade, and we're calling live from 104.3 QM-FM radio station.
Yes, you want Mr. Banksy. One moment, please.
Good afternoon. Just please make sure this conversation stays within the terms you agreed to with my publisher.
Alright then, let's begin. What does art mean to you?
Art is a way of expression. Most of the time, it's not given enough credit because people think that for whatever reason, the artist is trying to say something that's completely dense. But in reality, you have to look within the art itself to truly decipher the author's meaning.
What messages do artists have, and what are the values of it?
A lot of times, artists like us focus on messages that you can't really say in public, like things about war, because it will cause a lot of conflict. But using art, we can say what we want through the use of images, expressing our emotions to others through what we have made. Art is actually a really strong form of expression. The messages may be ambiguous or somewhat obscure at first, but you have to look within the artist's creative process, materials, background, in order to decide what the artist is trying to say.
Should art always have a definitive message?
It doesn't matter what an artist is trying to say, because the audience can choose to interpret it in whatever they want. I'm sure that other artists would agree on our reluctance to explain our message. For instance, if you watch Exit Through the Gift Shop, you can see a number of works, especially those on the wall regarding anti-war, which was a very controversial matter, and I didn't feel the need to justify any of it. It was mostly because of how much attention it got. Well, then the media got to it, and afterwards the whole thing just sort of exploded. News stations scrambled to get coverage, newspapers, and all that. My work and work style generally revolve around certain subjects, like, off the top of my head, there are themes of anti-war, anti-capitalism, nihilism, hypocrisy, poverty, and maybe even a bit of boredom. And it's through this that I develop my style, which is stenciling.
Right, so when we look at the piece, we automatically know it's you and what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and people always know that there's a hidden message that I'm trying to convey. Not only that, but I do street art, and I try to often level the balance between form and functionality, because I know, and damn do I know, that when the media gets to it, everyone will see, and I like my social reputation as it is.
The media?
Yeah, well, at first it was sort of cool. I was doing my own thing, and they were doing their thing. Then suddenly I start getting all this attention. Everyone wants to know what Banksy was up to, and what he has to say about whatever is going on at that time.
Should there be a freedom of speech in art?
Yes, there's always a cost behind the freedom of speech, though. You'll always have someone with a knife to your throat because of what you have to say. You can't please everyone, and you can't make everyone happy with your opinions, because not everyone will agree with you.
Well, if your identity were to be released to the public, would you be too afraid to continue on with your art? Should people be afraid to express their ideas? Through any means of communication, art, language, literature?
No, but if you look at other artists, even when dealing with things that have a certain sensitivity factor, people shouldn't really be afraid. I will say what I want to say, no matter if it's really sensitive to other corporations or even the government.
Then why is it that you're maintaining your anonymity in your work?
Well, I feel like my anonymity is what really made me a powerful figure. You see, Batman and V for Vendetta, these two figures are essentially just an idea, an embodiment of the concept, the notion of how anyone, even you, the audience, could be Batman. Just like how anyone could be Banksy, really, and speak out. Hell, I may not even be the real Banksy, but does it really matter? Does anyone care? Whoever you are, you have the power in yourself to say what you want. Say what Banksy wants. It's up to you, the mass. If you've seen the documentary, exit through the gift shop, you would know that even a wanker like Terry could make his own art. Literally anyone could.
What would you say makes art popular in general?
Definitely the popularity of the artist.
Does the art itself play a role in this, or is it just solely the reputation of the artist?
Both. This is the reason you see people flipping out over colored squares or dot. And then you have these people calling it total trash. It's probably as simple as liking it or not. But if the art reaches the audience in the right way, and if it touches them emotionally, then great. But then if it doesn't, they just don't feel it. Going back to Terry again, Ferry and I definitely contributed to the overhype. We thought that he wasn't going to get anywhere. I mean, it's Terry, but no one knew who Mr. Brainwash was before that, and neither did they know that he was just trying to earn some money.
Going on about this, what does authenticity mean to you? We know that you've been in the game for quite some time.
Well, yeah. I was about 16 when I dropped out of high school. So I've been in the street art routine since 1992, and many people know me as the spark of graffiti art. However, there are still some people who disagree. When I was about 17, I remember I had enough. An old lady come up to me and threatened to call the police for vandalism. And I remember just liking it. It's interesting how times change. So, in the documentary, it's not just about showing kids vandalizing and arsing around, but it's also how Terry idolized Banksy, not me, but Banksy, so much that when Mr. Brainwash became the new thing, Mr. Brainwash was sort of a copy of Banksy. So, in the end, I used the documentary to deliberately expose Terry's work and show how he's just a blatant, inauthentic person, I guess. But do people really care? But then again, branding is also very important. Giving a name to something gives it a lot of value. Something a junkie whipped up is worth substantially less than something from Van Gogh, both monetary and arbitrary. Having a car with a large diamond in the front saying, "Oh, Mercedes," is obviously worth more than something that's just a heap of metal, right? So, in the beginning of the film, you see a bunch of kids screwing about to the tune of Richard Hawley. Here is where the street art kind of branches off from pop art. Street art is more about identity, and if your art is a genuine expression of yourself, then yes, I would say it is authentic. Is a large-scale pasting of a man holding a camera authentic? Yes, although it's very cringeworthy, it's also authentic. Copying the styles of street artists? Not quite so. This also comes to the question of purpose. Is Terry indulging himself in street art just to gain popularity? Is he in it for the money or just the fame? Or is he in it for his own artistic expression? The art that you create should hold actual meaning and the values of importance to you as the artist. Whether or not the audience would pay good money for it is irrelevant.
What do you feel about Terry's exhibition, Life is Beautiful?
Well,
Sorry, I didn't know we were taking calls.
we can take them.
Hey, my name is Riley, and I have a question for Banksy. What would you say to people who are calling you a sellout and that you're no better than Terry?
I have zero obligation to justify my actions, but since you asked so nicely, the idea behind my street art is self-expression. I say and do as what I see fit. Yes, I admit I do make some money off of it, but that's not my primary intention. My initial intent is still my current intent. Everything else is secondary. The fact that I still make money for some art supplies and other living costs doesn't make me constitute as a sellout. I still have many things: integrity, morality, authenticity, etc., etc. None of this is for my personal gain. I simply just leave it there. It's the audience that gives it value. I didn't specifically tell people how to like it or nor did I tell them how much to pay for it. The whole idea of authenticity is still there. All there's left to do is for you to decide which way to take it.
My name is Kim Kim. Pop art isn't real art. Why don't you pick up a brush and make real art?
Art, you see, is mostly a mix of elements of design and principles. Pop art is largely composed of colors and shapes. It's very easy to overlook these every day because it's just there. Everyone walks past it on their way to work. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of people walk past it, and it acts as a sort of method of communication to people, sort of through their subconscious. It's not something that you just hang up by your dinner table, but it's outside for everyone to see. There are a lot of outsiders within the game who are trying to express their ideas through not only street art, but other forms of art. It's just their choice of art and the media that helps people see that, so that it reaches its maximum potential. However, there is this problem where the media somehow distorts the original meaning of the work. See, we're all playing the game here with a set rules, Space Invader, he's invading space. The whole thing is a game. You follow the rule of society, but the whole point of the game is to not play by the rules. In a sense, we're all outsiders. There are no normal people. Talking about Life is Beautiful, I used the documentary to show how people want what they feel is what they want, meaning that authentic is some sort of term that the definition is very fuzzy. It's very whimsical. We yearn for something that is authentic, but in a sense that is true to ourselves. We don't want to copy. Yes, of course. Yet people throw themselves at something that is fresh to them. The media puts the whole idea of authenticity in the spotlight with the notion of giving something more value. The more people, the more attention you give to something, the more value and ultimately worth it has. And Life is Beautiful is a very good example of this. I show that this is what happens as a sort of punishment to putting value on inauthenticity. Pleasure doing this interview. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Oh. As a recap for the audience members that have just tuned in, or hasn't been here for the whole interview, we learned from Banksy that because of the evolution of expectations for modern art, street artists have often been placed high on the artistic podium, but for artists like Terry Guetta, they have often hampered the movement for the pursuit of authentic and creative art. Banksy himself has seen his apprenticeship not as a reward, but more of a detriment to himself, the expressive community, and society. The results are a direct punishment for him, and he is bewildered at the idea of Terry's success, and brings him to question even his own legitimacy. Next time when you look at art, consider its authenticity and value as a whole. See if what the media tells us alters our outlook on what is considered better art. The idea that rules were meant to be broken were explored through his documentary, which he urges us to definitely go see because he hasn't had a hot meal in a while, and examines the way that artists are pressured to work beyond the social formalities that are set by our expectations. The evaluation of art has changed ever so much since the advent of pop art, forever changing how people perceive art. The answer to the idea of the documentary being a hoax is indeed coherent with what Banksy has said in the interview. Whether or not the documentary is true or false, whether or not the silhouette belongs to Banksy, or even if Terry Guetta is even real or not, is insignificant. It doesn't matter because his ideology behind all of the street art and pop art is that none of these things should be dependent on the name, but the value and authenticity it brings to us as an individual. Tune in next time at 104.3 QMFM.
The streets are